So once again, pro formas, architectural design, and land loans and construction financing.
Hey guys, nice arrangement in the previous conversation or the previous panel. There was somebody missing in the middle, so I thought that was pretty tongue-in-cheek. Somebody missing in the middle in a missing middle summit. So my name is Kartik Singla. I'm a mechanical engineer. Last year, I sold my shares in my previous company and started a development company. So we've got 4 projects in Barrie. And essentially what we're doing is we're taking single-family homes and converting them into 10 to 12 units. Barrie is a very interesting market. You know, you've got high rents and you know, the pro formas look great. So my question specifically is to the gentleman who just did the presentation on lending. With regards to when you guys are lending, what are you guys looking at for loan to cost? Like, is there specific things that you're looking at to determine, you know, you're going to go in at 25% equity or 20% equity that's going to be injected? And at what point do you expect the borrower to come up with that money?
So we look at the exit strategy. So at the end of the day, the lender has the construction loan. It's typically at a higher interest rate than the takeout financing. So we look at what at the end of the day, like how much financing you could get once the project is complete, and we lend accordingly. So if you qualify for the CMHC MLI Select, then we kind of be quite aggressive. So that's based on that. So it depends on the team, depends on the project, depends on the financial strength, and we back a project. But the CMHC MLI Select program is so aggressive that we could fund a large portion of the cost of a project. Like we require some skin in the game, so we'll never go to 90% of the cost, because if you're going to lend 90% of the cost, you may as well just do 100% of the cost and kind of develop it yourself. So you have to put some skin in the game to make it work, but we're quite aggressive when MLI Select comes into play.
Sorry if I may ask a follow-up.
Just one more, please. Then we just want to keep it going. Yeah.
Okay. So what ends up happening is that, let's say if you do go through the planning process, the value of your land will appreciate. So if you're going from, let's say, a single family home to 8 units or 10 units, you know, you've supposedly got a land lift in there. Do you take that into consideration, that, you know, that the value of the land has gone up because you've gone through the planning process?
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. So in some cases, we've actually given working capital up front. So $500,000 of working capital up front, like cash for you to kind of pay deposits for trades and anything else. So yeah, we do working capital up front. We provide funds for LCs, development charges, lots of money. So as long as the deal works, we're happy to be accommodative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey there, my name is Joseph, aspiring missing middle developer with Metro Multiplex. I've spoken to you before, Matt. I'm actually curious about the idea of the exit strategies and recycling capital. Now, I know when you went for your pro forma, we went more of a sort of rental approach, where you're supposedly going to be operating it. Now, if you want to look at, say, the condo consideration, where you're selling the end units to get the capital to go on to other projects, how would that factor into your other considerations on what kind of money and other line items you will need to consider? And what are some of the other alternatives to potentially selling it to, say, institutions, REITs and stuff that would want to operate this on their side, and, you know, potential sensitivities that you would need to incorporate into your model for any of these other issues that we're running into, of like having months of delay from the committee of adjustments, or having the ambiguity of being able to do MLI Select takeout financing if you are doing the 40 units plus one kind of thing?
So we often underwrite, because there's also no guarantee that you'll actually be able to register a condo corporation. So we kind of also underwrite. So we kind of trust certain builders very well, and we kind of assume it's a condo and we value it as such. Oftentimes we've been looking at it both as a multiplex, as a rental, and as a condo corp. So if it works both as a rental and both as a condo corp, we kind of underwrite it as a rental property. Because worst case scenario, you're not getting the condo corp register, you change your mind, you'll rent it out. will this project work as a rental project? And oftentimes, they're not too far apart between the condo valuation and the rental valuation. So it's not much of a difference. So often it works out, and there's kind of multiple kind of exit strategies. So we're happy to kind of work as condo, work as rental, and you don't necessarily need to sell though. Like my example from Kitchener with the two kind of duplexes side by side, the two small rental houses, they took $1 million of equity, okay, maybe like $950,000 of equity out from MLI Select. So our construction loan was about 1.4 million. MLI Select, they got an insured loan for 2.4 million. So they got $1 million out of that property to take on to new projects to move forward, and they still get to retain the property. So you don't necessarily have to kind of register as a condo corp and sell individual units. I think that's more of a experienced developer, in my opinion, to do that. And kind of if you're starting out, I would probably recommend starting out as a multiplexes. You can even sell a multiplex. We have clients have sold multiplexes in the past that are new. So I would say I would start with the rentals, sell them if you have to, refinance with CMHC, and then as you hone your craft, as you work on the finishes, be a little more high end, then you can kind of start registering those condos and sell them. I think you have to be a very experienced developer to kind of go the condo route, and it's kind of an expensive process, so not for the faint of heart.
Great, thanks for the consideration. And just on that, Matt spoke, if you have any experience with talking about selling the sort of multiplexes and who are in the market for that kind of product to be able to recycle the capital?
Well, to be honest, like I think there's less. So maybe 2 years ago, people were kind of selling multiplexes, and it kind of worked. But with the interest rate increases, I think the investor demand isn't there in this environment. Who knows a year or two from now what the investor demand will be. So yeah, no, that is a good point. So I guess you have kind of 3 exit strategies: 1, condo and sell; 2, retain as a multiplex; 3, you just sell the whole building and move on to the next. But the interest rate environment has definitely slowed down investor demand for this. But I foresee it once interest rates fall, it could be a much more attractive asset going forward.
Yeah, I think that's the right way to think about it. Like contingency planning, just because there's no guarantee that there will be a buyer at the price that you've projected. You know, we put 4.25 cap rate in the model as an example. If there's a buyer at that price, the options there, you definitely want to be comfortable having to hold on to that asset. You know, naturally you want to be able to recycle your equity if you can, but you know, some people are also building this just for sort of long-term accumulation of rental doors. But yeah, don't count on it too much, because at that scale, you know, there's not a lot of institutional buyers buying 4-unit buildings, so you're typically looking for a smaller investor that would want to take that on.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there. Just a quick question about the pro forma. In terms of using the MLI Select, is the minimum for MLI 5 units? And if that's the case, is a key part of it getting that ADU? So if you don't have the ADU, you don't get the MLI, everything more expensive?
Yeah, and Matt could probably speak to this as being the one who sort of like applies with deals with CMHC on this stuff. But this is one of the like interesting dances at this scale, is like you're trying to avoid DCs on the one side, but trying to hit the CMHC minimums on the other side. So you want to be 5 units when you're applying for, so like a 4+1 would qualify for MLI Select. But if you approach it, you know, you heard this earlier this morning, if you approach it the wrong way, you might get hit with 5 DCs, and the profit margin in your project can effectively evaporate or get cut in half. But yes, you do need to be 5 units. The MLI Select program is for sort of commercial building, and they classify that as like 5 units or greater. So it's something to keep in mind. If not, you don't have access to that program specifically.
Right, so to really make it work, you have to be key when you're selecting your site, that it's basically as of right.
Yeah, not to say there's no financing options outside of MLI Select, but it is definitely the most aggressive, as Matt mentioned, in terms of like what you can expect. You know, at this scale, you tend to get capped based on like your projected net operating income as opposed to your costs, because they're at a larger scale, you could borrow more as on a loan to cost basis typically, but at this scale, you tend to get capped based on what's the projected rental income net of expenses once the project's done. But you definitely want to be looking for sites where 5 is plausible. Yeah.
I'll also just add briefly, we are going to have another talk just on MLI Select, so there's more details coming for sure. So everyone who's heard the term MLI Select thrown around a lot, you'll get to find out what that is. We have another talk. Well, thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen, for the great presentations. Andy Tran from Sweet Editions. So we work with a lot of smaller homeowners, developers, smaller investors that are doing 2+1, 3+1, 4+1, and a lot of them are sort of quote unquote self-GCing. And I know that from the financing perspective, it's always challenging when a lot of these newer developers or homeowners that are doing it themselves are kind of tackling the project. And a lot of them it's because they can't find that builder or it's not within the price range that works for them, so they kind of want to handle it themselves. And I know that in our experience, financing has always been challenging when there's not that level of experience. So I myself, as a small developer, our team, we have Terry on, but a lot of my clients that we work with, they don't have that. So from the financing side, do you have flexibility for, Matt, for that type of developer?
So if they hire you as a construction manager, your experience, we're happy to work, as long as they have somebody to advise them. But if it's just a person with no construction experience, no relationship with trades, trying to take on a more complex project, we wouldn't want to get involved. Like it'd be too risky for us. We've seen some horror stories with construction. So I think experience is key in relationship with trades. So yeah, it has to be a certain level of experience, and we need to be comfortable. And honestly, if you don't have a proper construction manager, you should not be taking on a project. It's kind of risky for them too. So it's in everyone's best interest to deal with professionals that know what they're doing. And
Right,
good
so
relationship with trades.
you'd be more open if there was a construction manager or a project manager that may not necessarily be the builder, but they have experience and they have Terry on perhaps to guide them through the project.
Yeah, if you have someone sourcing trades and kind of supervising construction, whatever you call it, site super, construction manager, advisor, as long as somebody that knows what they're doing is involved, we're happy. We're not really hung up on contracts or anything like that. Like as long as we deal with reasonable people who aren't taking crazy risks, we're happy to get involved and happy to work with people. Like we want to work with quality, not people that are gonna have construction issues. That's not fun for anybody, and it's not right even to let somebody start a project. We don't want to back the wrong person, have construction issues. It's bad for everybody. So we like to deal with quality, and the right people should be building.
Great.
Maybe a follow-up question, just because my understanding is that there's also sort of a bonding requirement for less experienced construction managers and an insurance, like there are insurance products out there that you can effectively acquire to manage some of that risk. And it might be a lender-specific question, but have you come across that, and in what circumstances does that sort of factor into your consideration?
Our project, we do 20 million and below. I think the bonding, from what I've heard, is like a more expensive, like more like $100 million condo. There's more bonding involved. I haven't seen that type of insurance. I think insurers would lose a lot of money because only the worst projects would get that insurance, and there's a lot of inexperienced people out there. So I haven't seen on the small projects, but I know it's on very big projects.
So last question, but before, I'm just going to ask one quick question to you, Shea. So when looking at these 4 to 6 story major streets projects, now that 72 Amherst is not on a major street, but I think this is what we're anticipating. A big thing that we've been thinking about is how to think about garbage. So could you tell us a little bit about, first of all, whether or not you would always go for curbside garbage pickup, I guess up to 60 units the city allows for, and how do you think from a design perspective about qualifying for curbside garbage pickup, and maybe also accommodating private pickup? And then in addition to that, garbage chutes. How do you think about garbage chutes at this scale?
Yeah, it's funny, garbage is key. You don't see it in the renderings, but an awful lot of our time gets poured into resolving garbage servicing issues. Projects at this scale, and even larger, like we've completed a 48 unit building in Leslieville. It was when we started back in 2012. And that was one where, again, just based on the site constraints, we simply could not bring a garbage truck into the site. So we worked through that with the city. And we had to go through the application process. So as you mentioned, the current rules are if you're under 30 units, you don't need dedicated loading. If you're over 30 units, but under 60, you can apply for an exemption to the city, and the transportation department will review that. You could see from the site plan, like the site constraints at 72 Amroth, if we were to bring a truck in there, the project is nowhere near feasible. So that was key, and in fairness to the city, like they were very open to that. Like they understood those constraints, and they're willing to work with us. In terms of chute versus just carrying the garbage down, each resident themselves. That's often a kind of scale question. So we look at buildings, like even that 48 unit building, we didn't put a chute in that one. It was only 6 stories, so residents could carry the garbage down. When we get to chutes, then we look at more things like compacted waste, which is a much larger scale, much bigger undertaking, and then you're bringing trucks into the site. So yeah, I think some of those design constraints, it is garbage. It's also things like bikes. You know, we're complying with TGS or Toronto Green Standard Tier 2, so we have an elevated number of bikes that we need to provide for. It's the utility connects. We didn't get into the hydro connection, but it's an electrified building. So as things stand today, that building would need a pad mount transformer, which needs vehicular access. So we could only put it on the front. But I know Hydro are looking at that policy, and hopefully these buildings can be serviced from pole mount transformers, which would then free up the ground plane and the entrance. So definitely key considerations at very early stages, even rezoning stage, we're trying to resolve these servicing issues, because if you don't resolve them now, they're going to come up later, and then you're going to have to reconfigure your whole design.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. So I really appreciated all the presentations. So my question is also for Shea. Have you encountered any challenges designing multiplexes and such for radial lots or otherwise really askew or constrained lots, bike stackers, or garbage loading aside? I'd like to know. Thank you.
Just so I understand the question, design constraints related to bikes or constrained sites?
So radial lots. So for example, the Long Branch Pine Beach subdivision has radial lots that are essentially a slice of a circle, shaped like that. Kind of really skews. Some are below average in size. And then maybe, if you have a thin kind of pencil multiplex or even small tower lot. Those would be my examples.
A radial lot sounds exciting. Be interested to take a look at that one. Offhand, I don't believe we've done a radial lot. That's quite a unique condition for the city. But we've definitely worked on constrained sites. I mean, all the easy sites are done, right? So now the remaining sites are largely constrained. They're sites that are challenging. Some of those are city lands, so we've worked with Creatio on a number of projects where they've asked us to review sites to try to look at a development solution to maximize the value of the lands, demonstrate that to the market. These might be sites where they're very narrow, they're not a typical development site, and we've looked at how to incorporate, and make good units. We're very keen on the unit layout, something we look at the beginning. And we've done a number of townhouse projects as well. So again, studying the width of those units is key. But yeah, I think we find every site is constrained in some respects. We're always trying to, push the boat further. So there's always issues that we're running up against. And as I said, it could be those loading issues. It could also just be about how do we make great amenity in the building when we're at a larger scale as well. Parking is a big one. I know parking requirements are being relaxed, but that was always a key driver of the floor plan, and almost it sounds odd, but in some respects your unit demising could be based on your parking layout, which is counterintuitive, but that's shifting now, and it's going the other way, so that it's being driven by the home rather than the services underneath.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, last question, and then we'll have lunch.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Great presentations. My name is Pogna Bokeh. I have questions about financing. So right now I have 2 active projects, 5 units for 4plex plus garden suite. And we're using private financing for those deals, exiting with CMHC Select Level 2. I know we can finance those deals with the CMHC on the buy with construction loan. However, I hear a lot that it's challenging to find a lender that will give you construction loan for 1.5, 2 million. Usually big guys want to touch 5 or 10 million and up. So my question is, how really challenging is to buy those projects with construction loan with CMHC? That would be the first question. And the second question is, it's more about the rumors and how you think the CMHC will change for financing for smaller buildings, so fourplexes, and still, do you think it will be possible to utilize CMHC MI Select for those smaller units, less than 5 units?
There's going to be a presentation after lunch from Max at Peak Hill. So I think he's going to focus on CMHC MLI Select in his presentation. But I invite everybody, I think, look at options. So happy to look at CMHC for your project, see if it works, look at all the costing for construction, and then look at alternatives for construction as well. Look at the full costing and pick the best option that works for you in terms of flexibility, cost, and then stress and everything else like that too. So it is hard to get financing for smaller projects, especially for construction through CMHC, but we found people, like once complete, they are able to refinance with CMHC. So I think the MLI Select is a great option for refinancing especially. I think Max at Peak Hill will talk about the construction, and we don't really get involved with CMHC for construction. We have a mutual fund. We're private for our fund, so that's why we're flexible. But some people go for CMHC financing for construction. That's fine. If it works, if you get the attention you need. But I just encourage everyone to explore all options.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on a project with Foremost as our construction lender, where the construction loan is a traditional construction loan, and then on takeout, we'll be seeking CMHC finance, like CMHC MLI Select financing. So, and then that's like a $2 million construction loan. So in that range that you're talking about. Yeah, but it won't be an MLI Select construction loan. It'll be MLI Select on takeout. So yeah, it's a very not uncommon.
Okay, thank you to our panel. Thanks again for your talk and your answers.